All right, well, we are back on schedule, so that's good. So we are now starting the third major section, the last section, which is much more practical. So in the first section, we're laying the groundwork of preparing for having a child, a church plant. In the second section, we talked about the whole conception phase, gestation phase of your church. And so now we're moving into the third phase on actually birthing the church. And so right now we're going to talk about building a shared vision, creating ownership of the vision. Because at this point, the people who own the vision are primarily you as the church planter and your team, your church planting team. But at the same time, you're gathering people that are becoming a part of this new church plant that hasn't launched yet. But you're gathering these people, and how do you get them to buy into that vision as well? And so that's what we're going to talk about now. So just again to review, we've got our chart there. So this is step 6, the shared vision. We covered mission, core values, target group, setting the vision, disciple-making pathway we just finished. And now we're in that green box with the shared vision. And you'll notice that the arrow then goes back to core values and back through the cycle of church planting and refining. So we talked about why we are here. That's mission. What's our purpose? Who are we? Our values. Who is our target people group? What is our vision? What pathway do we need? So now we're going to talk about how do we make it happen? How do we realize the vision? So I'm done with this. All right. So let's talk about shared vision a moment. So it says here, without sharing the vision with the leaders and the congregation, the vision will die. The question is, who is going to go with us? And we want to create corporate ownership of the vision. So at the church that I replanted, we had a saying at the church, and that is that every church is a mission team. I don't believe there's a difference between church and mission. I think they're exactly the same thing. And so I see every church is a mission team. Everybody's on the team, and everybody's going to fulfill the mission. And so we didn't talk about them as separate things about church and mission. It's all the same thing. So, for example, when I wrote a vision statement, I didn't write a vision statement for Lancaster Evangelical Free Church. I wrote a vision statement it's a vision statement for missions, because that's all we do. Because that is what the church is supposed to be doing. The church is supposed to multiply itself. It's supposed to continually be planting churches and reaching the world with the gospel. So everything we do is underneath mission, because that is the church. So this is, our mission statement is quite lengthy in the description, but our vision statement, I just want to read to you the beginning part of it. So I wrote a preamble, then we had a couple paragraphs, and we have detailed paragraph, and then we have like a summary benediction at the end. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want to give you a sense of how we thought of ourselves and what our vision was as a church. So we believe that we live in perhaps the most thrilling of times in the history of redemption, when the gospel is actually reaching the very ends of the earth, and God is calling out for himself a people to worship him forever. Convinced that we live to serve the Lord God and his gospel, we are willing to take great risks for his glory among all peoples and their full enjoyment of him. We have been led by the Holy Spirit to assist in the development of a church planting movement among an unreached people group in East Asia. To achieve this end, we will partner with other like-minded evangelical missions, using short-term and long-term teams for contribution to evangelism, discipleship, church planting, and leadership development. We will pray large and move forward tirelessly with courageous faith in all of our adventures, remaining teachable to God's direction and redirection at all times. All members of the Lancaster Evangelical Free Church will be involved, prayerfully and practically at some level. supremely motivated by faith, hope, and love. Our global vision will promote a world Christian climate within our church and result in similar church planting outreach initiatives in our own community. So I'll just stop there. But that's sort of the sense of who we were as a church. What is our vision? We're a mission team, and everyone does it. So laying that out, I automatically have a view and lay it before the people and the leadership of the church that we're all in this together, and we have a shared vision. Of course, I know they don't have it yet, but I'm not going to say that. I'm just assuming they're all on board, and we're going to start moving. So shared vision is that part of it is, in the absence of a great dream, pettiness prevails. This is from a book. And so we need to make sure that the dream keeps flowing through the whole developing church group. So, you know what pettiness is in churches? It's like, I don't know, churches in America, I think, have the spiritual gift of pettiness. I mean, that's all they do is complain about things. And so what do people argue about in your churches? What stupid things do they argue about? I mean, we all make jokes about it at, church conferences and these types of things. So how do you get rid of it? And so what we believed at our church is that the best way to get rid of it is to give them something big to work on. Okay? And so because we had such a large vision and everyone was involved in it and they were expected to be a part of it, the pettiness just disappeared because no one had time for it. And people saw things in proper perspective. I mean, at one point we had 3/4 of our church going on these trips all the time to plant churches in these unreached areas of Southwest China. So they experience all sorts of crazy stuff out there and all sorts of different living conditions, and they see the power of the gospel. So when they come home, do you think they care what color the carpet in the church is? They don't care anymore, right? We have a joke in America, the churches argue about the color of the carpet. We're going to recarpet the church, and there's a big committee that has to study carpet fibers and carpet colors and has to get, 6 different bids on the carpet and stuff like that. The way I do things is I just say, Ruth is in charge of the carpet. Whatever she buys, you're going to like it. Okay? So now let's go do something important with our lives. So, we don't tolerate pettiness in our church, because there's much bigger things to do. But at the same time, this whole thing that Steve talked about discipleship and leadership development, we saw that all happen as part of the process in fulfilling the vision. And so, I'm taking my people over to do these things, and we talk about it as discipleship on steroids. Think about it. You get to spend 2 weeks with your pastor, doing evangelism, discipleship, and church planning along with national partners. You're going to get to know each other really well, and your life is going to be totally changed very, very quickly. And when you come back, you feel empowered as a leader, because on the mission field, I put you in charge of preaching. You show up in a village, guess who's preaching? The foreigner. Okay, so you're preaching. Get up there and start sharing the gospel. The whole village is assembled because they've never seen a person from the West before. So go share the gospel. See how it goes. Somebody will interpret for you. Don't worry what you say, because it doesn't matter. The interpreter is really the one who's talking, right? So it's just like, who knows what you're really hearing when I'm talking to you. So they know it better than you, so don't worry. It's like the perfect opportunity for preaching training. So then when they come home, it's like, I want to do that here. So why do we have such weird requirements in America? But anyway, so they get discipled, they get leadership development. I like to empower people very quickly. I think the sooner they fail, the better. And they learn, and we learn together, and we just have a great time doing it. Now, in contrast to the wonderful experience at Lancaster EV Free, prior to that, I was an associate pastor in a church in Chicago that was it is the most petty church in America. Okay? I think they got the award. It's probably in the glass case with all the other awards that they have in the hallway for all sorts of weird things that churches do. But they literally did fight over the color of the carpet. It took 2 years to actually select carpeting for one of our rooms. And it was awful when they selected it. It was ugly. It was the worst decision anybody could ever make. It was like diagonal stripes on the floor. So you walk in there and you have vertigo. So it was just the dumbest decision. So, yeah, they do all sorts of crazy things. And so, and every single committee meeting that you were in or board meeting, it's like, did you know that Peter said this to John, and now John's wife Mary thinks this about this person, and they talk about all that stuff all the time. It's like, I don't really care. Solve your own problems and leave me out of it. Okay? That has nothing to do with the business of the church. You have issues, obviously, in relationships, so we can talk about that somewhere else. But they would talk about that. And again, I already mentioned that, everyone seems to be on a committee and multiple committees, and they think that's ministry. It's not. If it's not people time, I don't count it as ministry. And so, but everybody's on a committee because everybody has to make rules, and everybody's like wanting to first and second motions so their name can be in the minutes. Okay? That's what our business meetings were. And they would go on for hours because somebody has to argue about something. Somebody always has to raise a contrary opinion. And then we have to discuss it and set up a study group about this whole thing. Okay? It was just crazy. And it's still the same way. It's paralyzed. The church really can't do effective ministry because they're just too busy doing nothing, but they call it ministry. In the meantime, the church is dying and having all sorts of problems. Let alone the music style issues in this church. I mean, they are always having issues with that. So now they're really proud of themselves that they've moved into contemporary worship. But when I go there and visit them still, their contemporary worship is 30 years old. Okay, that's because everybody in the church is now extremely old and there's no young people. So, but they can't see it. Now, at the same time, I love them, just so you don't get the wrong idea. But, and they love me and they know who I am and what I think of them. But that was like the best experience for me, to experience the typical American petty evangelical church that doesn't do much to impact the world for Christ. Okay? So, as I have a great negative experience and a great positive experience. But if we talk about then what shared vision will do, if you have a shared vision, it focuses your energy, right? It creates identity. I mean, think about what I read for our church, at least, for example. Everyone's energy is focused. And you think about the Chicago church, it's like all over the place, right? Creates identity. We know who we are, Lancaster EV Free. That church in Chicago, they're still figuring it out. They go to their graves figuring out who they are. It unites people. At the Lancaster church, we're all going in the same direction. At the Western Springs church, everyone's going in their own direction. It's crazy. You think about contagious climate. People walk into Lancaster EV Free or they meet our people. They can articulate the vision. They can bring people in. They don't need to talk to me. They just talk to any of the people in my church. They'll bring them in. Western Springs, you go there. Why would you want to return? These people don't do anything that's really compelling. And it encourages faith, a shared vision does. And so we're constantly pushing people out into the front at Lancaster EV Free. We create a climate where, you better have some failures to report. Because if you don't, you probably are not stepping out in faith and trying new things. Okay? And so that's the climate, and you're free to do it, and we learn together, and we encourage people to express their faith. There's no faith at the other church in the Chicago church. They talk about it, but no, they got to have the budget. They have 5 budget committees, and, they go through every penny, and they're trying to figure it all out. And if they can't figure out who's going to lead it and have every little thing figured out and all the money in place in advance, and then they call that faith. Okay, I don't know why that's faith. And shared vision will stay for the long term. It keeps for the long term. And so the Western Springs Church is just always in turmoil. It's so sad. And they're such intelligent people too, and so gifted. There's just so much potential at that church, and it's wasted because they're petty. It's because they don't have a vision. They don't have a shared vision that they can work on together. So, what did this at our church was a church planting vision, right? So this is what actually happened, these types of things. The chairman of my elder board is an engineer, and he got a very lucrative job offer across the country. And he turned it down because he didn't want to leave our church. Because the vision was so compelling, and it was so fun to be a part of it. Okay? And there were others who did the same thing. People in America like to take their vacations in the summer, and they're very protective of their vacation time. but people in our church would schedule their vacations around our trips, around our anything that we would be doing that's vision related. They don't want to miss it. And so they would change the dates of their vacations so they wouldn't miss anything. And that was the kind of church that we had. And they would even go speak to other churches. I would sign them up and then tell them what they're doing. And so I had all these other pastor friends that were struggling with vision in their churches. And I say, well, you just, let us come and tell you what's going on in our church. And usually they want the pastor to speak, right? But, am I in trouble? Okay. So, but this is what I found, at least in some of our church contexts, is that people hear from pastors all the time. And we always hear the same thing. And of course you expect the pastor to be great, okay? But what about the average person that the average person listens to? So when I tell them, hey, you five, we need you to go over to the Hesperia Church Sunday night. I want you to give a 1-hour presentation about what God's doing in our church. Said, you can say anything you want, just go say things. And so, and I just sign them up and I said, it's you, can you make it? Oh yeah, let's go. So then they would drive a couple hours out there to the church and I'd be with them. I would never speak. Okay, I'd never speak. And I would just tell the pastor, said, yeah, they're speaking. I'm drinking coffee. So, and then they would just share their heart. And the people were amazed at these are average people like me in the church. And they're doing these things and experiencing these things. I mean, we did that with probably 8 different churches in our whole district. And it really motivated these churches to get involved and find out what God would have them to do in a church planting mission, whether it's locally or whether it's globally, whatever it might be, they could do the same type of thing. So that was the kind of atmosphere that was created because the vision was shared. It wasn't just something that the leadership believed in or tried to promote or do on their own, but it was something that was given to the people and that we worked on it together. So there's a few things that help in doing this. I mean, there's a lot of things that will help share vision, and I can be very practical, but I want to cover what's in our slides first. But prayer partners, we already talked about this. June talked about this, having your list of 50. Prayer always comes first, and communication to your prayer team is critical, okay? I mentioned yesterday, I think, or the day before, this young man, his name's Andrew. He's planning a church in this really odd part of Los Angeles, and he was really struggling initially to really understand vision and how to get it done. So one of the other questions he asked me about was his prayer group. I asked him about his prayer group, and I said, so how do you communicate with them? Show me an email you sent them. So he showed me an email that he sent his prayer team, and basically his email contained dates, demographics, a timeline, and when he was moving. And I said, that's boring. No one cares about those things. I said, don't you have a vision for your church plant? He's like, oh, yeah. Let me see your vision. And so he shows me the vision that he'd worked on. I said, that's awesome. You should send that to your prayer team. They would love to pray about those things. And then, at the end say, oh, by the way, we're moving on this date, so pray for that. So you got to have things in the right perspective. And so you want to communicate your vision constantly in new ways to your prayer team because they're going to be excited and pray about that. Okay, number 2, sharing the vision by text, email, website, whatever communication methods are preferred. So figure out who you're communicating with and what their preferred method is. Don't just do one method, okay? And don't just duplicate everything because that just creates junk, okay? So figure out the niche for each person that you're going to be communicating with. Do they like emails? Do they like text? Do they go to the website? And then make sure you cover all the bases so that you communicate. Maybe they use WeChat or whatever you use in this country to communicate. Also, I would strongly encourage you, we'll talk about a team later, your church planning team, but I would strongly encourage you to name somebody as communications director. Especially in a day and age when communications is extremely important and you want it done well, you want it done in a timely fashion, and you want to communicate vision by it. You don't want it to just sort of happen or be late or haphazard or low in quality. So somebody needs to be your communications director, and then they can help, or this person or team of people can help work that out. 3, recruit and use your leadership team. This promotes significant ownership early on, gets more people sharing the vision. We'll talk more about this later on as well. But in other words, if you're the church planner, you have a church planning team you're working with, as the church planter, don't always be the one sharing the vision. Okay? Give other people on your team the opportunity to share the vision. In fact, make them share the vision. Give them opportunities to do it publicly. And you can observe them, and you can encourage them. But as people are required to give the vision, they're going to own the vision more. They're going to have to think through how to articulate it. They're going to internalize and identify with that vision that you've been working on together. Because your leadership team has to be all in. There can't be any holdouts on the leadership team, and there's only one vision. There cannot be competing visions on the leadership team. There's only one vision, because otherwise you got to all go in the same direction. If you have two visions, you're going to be going in two directions. If you have three visions, you're going to be going in three directions, right? And we want to go in one direction. So you have to figure out how that's going to work. You're either going to have to all figure it out. Somebody's going to have to submit to somebody, biblical concept. Or, you're going to have to choose to decide, well, these are both great visions. Maybe we should have two teams going, okay? And that's great. And make it a positive thing, not a negative thing. But you can only have one vision, and that's what needs to be fulfilled. And then you can create and refine the vision together. So as your leaders are sharing it, they're probably going to come up with some better ways to articulate it than maybe you do as the church planning pastor. Well, be humble enough to accept that, to incorporate that, because you're building a leadership team together. 4, sharing the vision. Keep repeating the vision. Think of the varieties of ways that you can keep sharing the vision and values. When you think you've said these things too often, share it again, right? Every meeting, okay? Every single meeting you share the vision. It doesn't have to be the exact same words. In fact, that would probably work against you because people would start tuning you out. So you're using different words. You're telling different stories. But you find a way in every single meeting, small group meeting, prayer meeting, a public preaching meeting, a teaching meeting, whatever the meeting is, you find a way to tie everything back into the vision. Now, there are some problems that come along the way with a shared vision. Things happen. So you have to be constantly monitoring the level of ownership of the vision. You constantly got to be aware of that. And it's probably intuitive. If you think that something bad is happening to the vision, it probably is, okay? So you need to find out what it is and fix it. And so the first one is just keeping the vision alive for yourself. Because we can be the ones, the lead planters, as the problem. We can lose the vision. So a way to help you do this, here's a calendar exercise. I'm just going to tell you what it is. Plan a monthly retreat day for the next 12 months. A monthly retreat day. And keep this discipline. So I think we talked about rhythm earlier. Steve mentioned rhythm. And so I have these for myself. I have a monthly retreat day. I call it a PRD, a personal retreat day. And I can do whatever I want on that day. But it's related to vision in some way. But I also have an annual planning retreat that I do with myself, just myself and the Lord. And it's on my iCal repeating events. Okay? So I know the beginning of October, it's going to pop up on my list. Okay, put together your annual planning retreat. So it could be 2 to 4 days. I'll just find the days on my calendar. I'll book a hotel and I'll disappear for 4 days. Go dark. No one knows. No one's going to be able to contact me. I don't answer emails. Nothing. Okay. And I just plan. And I plan that day. I plan those days so that I don't just sit around doing things without planning. I will in advance plan my own calendar for myself. Okay, I need to think through each of these pieces and have it all planned. And then I usually will produce a document that I don't share with anybody but myself about where I'm going for the next year. Maybe share it with my wife. So you need to keep it alive in yourself and see how it develops. 2 is competing agendas problem. Okay, this is a big one. This is probably one of the top ones you're going to have a problem with. So people enter a church plant with a lot of expectations. And, whether they're joining your team, your leadership team, or want to be a part of the plant, Unique church planting core values are a priority. Your core values are your priority, right? And when people bring their personal core values to the church plant, that's a problem. Because the church is not about their personal agendas. It's about the corporate identity and the calling on that church that you've already identified with your mission, values, vision, these types of things. So when you notice that people start trying to insert their personal core values, you need to have conversations, private conversations with those people, and help them to see what they're doing, that they're diluting the actual vision of the church plant. Even though their idea may be good, the point is we are doing this together. It is not their church plant, okay? You've got to take care of that immediately. You notice at the bottom of the slide here, all these realities lead to possible agenda conflict if these things aren't addressed early. The worst thing to happen is to sort of let this kind of stuff fester, think, oh, he'll figure it out, or I'll just pray for him, that type of thing, or her. And then before you know it, it becomes a bigger and bigger problem. And then when you deal with it, you're going to have a lot more fallout. So right away, as soon as you notice, if people start inserting personal agenda items, you got to have conversations. And just talk them through it, bring them back to the corporate vision, help them to see their own personal vision as their own personal vision, but we're not doing personal visions, we're doing the vision for the church. Experiences. People come to a church plant with previous experiences. And so my strategy with dealing with those is that you recognize the value of their previous experience. Okay, you don't denigrate it, but you just simply say, yeah, that's an awesome story. Tell them, I'd love to hear more about it. You know, you affirm that experience, but then you also emphasize, but you know what? We are now on a new adventure together. It's going to be different than what you experienced then. It's going to be probably just as exciting, maybe even more exciting. Okay, so you affirm the previous experience, but you emphasize this is a different experience. It's a new adventure, and it's not going to probably look much like their previous experience. So you can affirm both. Hurts from past relationships. People are hurting people. Often hurting people are attracted to new things. So you always got to be on the lookout for those people. And they're going to bring those in. And so, again, my strategy is you sympathize with them, you hear their stories, you pray with them, encourage them on how to process that biblically. But then you refocus them on what God is doing now in this new work. And that in this new work, they're going to experience great healing in their lives. Another thing that they will do, people will enter a church plant with a wide variety of talents and gifts, okay? And they don't necessarily know how their talents and gifts fit in with the vision, but you as the lead church planner and the church planning team can help them see how they fit in. But sometimes people just want to express themselves, right? And they just want to use their gifts. And they can be too focused on themselves. But you want to help them see how that gift can fit in with what you're doing. So you're funneling their giftedness. You don't want to not use it, but you want to use it in the way that's going to advance the vision. You don't want to use it just as, a side ministry, or think that, we'll just let him do that because he'll be happy doing that and people will be blessed, but it won't be too big of a deal because we're going to still do this vision. But if you start allowing all these little side things to happen, all your energy dissipates. You're no longer focused. So people's gifts have to fit into the vision. So you have to figure that out as a leader, how to do that with people and how to take them into that. So right now, just briefly, quickly, I want you to think about and write down a list of people in your core group that you need to spend some personal time with to re-emphasize or even create vision, okay? So just do that right now. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Some may not have any because they're just imaginary church.
Yeah, if you have imaginary church plants, then you can put down imaginary names. So, you should be done by now, okay? So, but just think quickly, is there anyone on your core team, maybe you've been avoiding them, and avoiding hard conversations. Write down the names of people you need to re-emphasize the vision. Okay, done. All right, number 3. Another problem is vision leaks. So there's a number of ways this can happen. We listed 3 here. The filing cabinet trap. After a seminar or an early core group training event that you might do, you just sort of file it away, put it on your shelf, and you forget about it. Because you think, I got the concept, I can figure it out. But what you want to do instead is actually keep using that tool and referring to that tool verbally in materials that you might produce. So for example, this event might be one of those for you, okay? That you don't want to necessarily just put it on the shelf. Oh yeah, I went to that seminar that Cam put on, right? And I got it. But you want to keep your notebook handy. You want to refer to it. You want to refer other people to it. You might want to teach some of those things to your people. And so that way you keep the vision going and you're all using the same language. Third, assuming that everyone knows and keeps the vision is a bad assumption. Assuming that everyone knows and keeps the vision is a bad assumption. So communication is important, modeling it and encouraging people and telling them and constantly communicating about the vision. You can't just assume they know it. Third, it's a dynamic, ongoing process of vision casting. And like I mentioned earlier, in shared vision, you as a leader have to be humble and open to modifications. We're not talking about major ones, but we're talking about minor developments in the vision because it's dynamic. You're going to write your mission statement. That probably is not going to change much. But your vision statement's going to evolve. Like I mentioned, we rewrote ours every year. That was like, it looks like it was the second revision. Okay, from year 2 that I read to you. I probably have others, but I couldn't find them all. So we just refine it all the time because God is leading you in new directions. And that's helpful too because you get to review the vision together. The next one is that vision grows or doesn't grow. This is a problem for vision. First impressions, you can do first impression interviews for newcomers. Do they see your vision? So you could even develop a tool, or you could just do it informally and find a way to find out from newcomers to your church what their impressions are of you. So for example, this is what I did. You always want to find ways to schedule informal ways for vision casting. And so one of the ways that we did that is if a new person, when new people come to the church, we would schedule regular things where you go to the pastor's house, my house. You go to my house for dessert. And we did 4 things in that meeting. First is, I always ask this question, so what brought you to Lancaster Evangelical Free Church? And then they tell me. And my second question is, why'd you come back? And that really tells you a whole lot more because then they're telling you what they saw and what they liked. And then I would simply say, well, let me share with you a little bit more about our vision here. And then I would share, without notes, all the stuff that I've been sharing here about our vision as a church with them. And then even before, they've only been to the church maybe 2 times, I share with them how they can be involved. In fact, I have in my head a whole list of possible roles, and I would just simply say, sounds like you would be great, Daniel, at doing this and this and this. So if you join us, we'd love to have you a part of this vision. And so immediately, after just a visit or 2, you've brought them into the vision. And you just pray that God brings the right ones and keeps the bad ones away. So if they do join, there's going to be a better chance for positive involvement. So people don't come with their own agendas. They come because they like your agenda. And if they don't like your agenda, you don't want them, right? Because you're on a mission, okay? And then if people do leave, you should conduct exit interviews if they let you. Sometimes they don't. They're so mad at you. But with people who leave, to see if it was a vision conflict. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I mentioned earlier the experience of my friend Joe who left, and it was definitely a vision thing. He just didn't want to be a part of the vision we had. And that's fine, there's other options for you. So that's number 4. You want to make sure your vision keeps growing with new people, and that's how you do it. Number 5, we can be naive about communication. Man, I went faster than I thought. Okay, so 5, we can be naive about communication. It is, I said it once, everybody should understand. I said it once, everybody should understand. And so I would just simply say they won't understand if you say it once, and you wouldn't either. If I gave you the vision for my church and walked away and asked you to repeat it, you probably couldn't, right? So you got to constantly be communicating. And Communication repetition is crucial. Ideally, in every gathering, every study, every sermon, you stick it in there. So we're going to do, Steve?
Just one other thing.
Yeah.
I said it once at the beginning of this thing, and so everybody probably grasped it and is moving along. But what about the new people that are coming in on a regular basis? How are you going to communicate that vision with them in a way that they will be able to join with as well?
Good. Yeah. So that's how your vision grows, right? Because you're getting more people. You want to keep expanding the vision. And so we would always have, you have your annual church meeting. We would have quarterly meetings, sometimes monthly meetings, and they're just vision meetings. We don't talk about business because business is boring and no one cares. We take care of business somewhere else. But it's just a vision casting meeting. So we just talk, we update everybody on the vision. Yeah. So you always got vision meetings going on. Create new ones. All right, so let's do a little exercise in your map, keeping vision alive exercise. So you can do this in your teams or your couples again. And then you can be ready to share with us as a group. So there are 3. We forgot to get rid of that one question, Steve. Number 2. But anyway, so there are 4 questions on your sheet. How and when will I seek vision from God? So that goes back to the problem of just your own personal staying fresh in your own vision. 2, in what ways can I restate values and vision? That really goes into question 3 anyway on communication, but how will I communicate values and vision in my preaching? And 3, how will I use stories to communicate values and vision? So in your teams, I want you to think about those few questions, answer them briefly, they're short answer type questions, and then just be ready to share with the group here in a few minutes, okay? So I'll give you about 5 minutes to put that together. Okay, let's share a few things here. So how and when will I seek vision from God? Anybody have a comment they'd like to share with the whole group about that? Okay. Anybody have something they want to share about how they are going to keep the vision fresh in their own life? No? Okay.
It's a vision that you believe God has given you. You're going to keep talking to God.
Yeah. So do you have a plan on how you're going to do that?
No.
No? Like an annual or?
I don't have a vision yet.
Oh, okay. All right. But yeah, you're right. Of course. Obviously, you want to keep the vision fresh. But has anybody put together a plan? Did you do what I did and put it in your iCal repeating events already? That you're going to have an annual retreat for yourself or a monthly retreat day? You did? So everyone should already have it.
No.
Oh.
That was one that people were thinking through.
All right.
The assignment was thinking through.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
In terms of finding vision and reminding ourselves of vision, it's only the job of the pastor, or it's possible it could be like corporate work of all elders?
Yeah, this particular point was a personal one, but yeah, I think when it comes to keeping the vision alive with your team, yeah, team retreats are very, very effective.
But establishing your initial values, is that what you said?
Yeah. Like who should be the one who is coming first?
Does he have to do it alone, or does he do it with the team?
Well, you do it with the team, but you need to lead the team.
Of course.
Yeah, so developing your values and your vision and mission. This all should be done as a leadership team, but the lead pastor needs to lead it.
Of course, I understand.
Yeah.
But so it's all right if I become like a first draft of the guys, this is what's in my mind and my heart. What do you think about this?
Exactly. That's exactly how I would do it. Yep. Yeah, I would always bring things to the table that can be discussed, because if you bring nothing, it's really hard to discuss it. No. And you're going to have a lot of other ideas out there, and you want to be the one that preempts the conversation. You want to direct the conversation as the leader. So you put the stuff on the table. Yep.
And allow them to have some good ideas.
Yeah, and then you can modify it and work on it together. Yeah. Okay. How will I communicate values and vision in my preaching? Anybody got anything to share on that? How you're going to communicate that?
We mentioned like to put on a website, which when someone coming to web, the first screen probably might be something about the vision.
Okay.
Which reminds everyone. Then once per year, just to have a talk about this, to remind all congregations this is our vision. And we have more time.
Okay. And you have what?
We didn't have more time to think about.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, great. Those are some really great starts, right? So we talk about, so you want to think about all the avenues of communication available to you and then just use them all. You can stick it in every sermon somewhere. Yeah.
Seems like if God's blessing your vision and your efforts, such as yours in Southeast Asia, that it just calls for celebration.
Yeah.
And which is another great opportunity to say this grew out of our vision, and which God gave us, and now God's blessing.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, parties are great. I think churches need to have more parties. And churches need to drink more beer, especially in America. Anyway, you have two hands up. What do you say?
Yeah, so one of the things we do is have, when we have our annual meeting for the church, it's a praise meeting. And it's an opportunity to fellowship, food, have a gathering, praise, and then that time is good to refocus on, just kind of bring everyone in on the vision. So,
Good. How about using stories? Last question. How about using stories? How can you do that? I mean, people relate to stories better than just a propositional statement about your mission, right? Yeah. I have a good one on this one. So with our particular church, what we do, so we're sending out these teams constantly every 6 to 9 months to go church planting. And, because I convinced them they could plant a church in a week. And so they had to go check it out. And so we would train them to do it, and it would happen, and they'd be like, how'd that happen, right? But this is a different context. We have unique methodology and unique people we're working with. But anyway, so when they come back, right, people want to hear stories from the field, right? So you know what I did? I told them they can't tell any stories, okay? Because what usually happens in America is that people come back and then they are excited and say, tell me what happened. I say, well, sorry, pastor said I can't tell you yet. I'm like, why not? I said, well, you just have to wait and see. And then, in most American churches, what they'll do is on a Sunday morning, they'll have a mission moment. In my opinion, that's a terrible idea. So because you satisfy people too easily. And I'm not interested in making people comfortable. So because if you get up there and you give a 1 minute, 2 minute interview about what happened on the mission trip, there's a bunch of people out there who's like, oh, that was great. And that's all they want to know. No, it's not an option in our church. You're either going to hear it all or nothing. Okay? So we would schedule storytelling night. That's what we called it. And after every trip, there was a storytelling night, and it was usually on a Sunday night, but it could be any time during the week, and it would be from 6 to 9 p.m. Okay? And, we'd have food and childcare and all that kind of stuff. Just come and hear stories. And I would teach people how to tell stories. So everyone on the team would tell stories very well, okay? But, and they had a particular outline they had to follow. But no one would leave. I mean, everyone would show up, like 100% attendance, okay? And for years, this would happen. And no one would even get up to go to the bathroom. I mean, I'm not joking. It's just they would be like crossing their legs and it's just like, okay, I think it's time for a break. And then it was like, don't tell any stories until I get back. So we had to wait till everybody got back and just tell the stories and rejoice in the glory of God and stuff like that. And so then we would allow the stories to get out. And then we would encourage people, you know what? There are more stories to tell. So why don't you connect with one of these people that came back and take them out to lunch and have them tell you more stories. And so we would just teach people to tell stories. So I'm not telling the stories. I tell a few. The people are telling the stories, right? And so we would use stories all the time to communicate vision. And then after they hear the stories, they're like, well, when can I go? When's the next one? When can I go plant a church? And people want to go back to the same places and do all sorts of things. And, when can I be involved? We were doing some local church plant stuff at the same time. How can I be involved in that? So stories are very, very effective. So anyway, we're done.